The Cultural Council's mission is to nurture, promote, and support a healthy, diverse, and inclusive cultural sector so that arts and culture are a part of everyday life for everyone. We invite listeners to discover Florida's cultural capital online at palmbeachculture.com/explore. Welcome back to another episode of the ArtiGras Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Lapierre, and I'm here today with a wonderful guest, Jim Barbato of the Palm Beach Opera. Jim, you've been with the opera for almost 10 years now, and we have so much to talk about today, so I'm excited to dive in. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, you know, there's a lot that I want to get into, but let's start off with a little bit of background,
Sure.
Right? You began your career as a singer before you moved into the leadership roles that you've been in for a number of years now.
Yes.
Do you remember a moment when you felt, oh, I am going to be as passionate about the backstage and the administration as I am about the performance and the onstage?
Yeah, great question. It was a gradual evolution. When you're coming up as an emerging singer, all artists have to find other work to support themselves in between engagements. And a lot of my other work was in arts admin, kind of related tasks. So I did grant writing for an organization. I did scheduling for the opera department and the whole complex logistics of how rehearsals come together. I did union negotiation at one point, and a lot of high-end hospitality where you're really interacting with people in ways that translates well to fundraising and development.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate to have a lot of great opportunities as a singer and really have fulfilling projects to do. But it's a very, very challenging career. And after your 20s, where you have great kind of emerging artist opportunities where companies will have you come in and do the supporting roles and do education projects, I found myself kind of in the big pool of principal artists competing against the really established people for the leading roles. And at that point, you kind of have to take stock of where things are. And is it something that you can make a comfortable living at? That was my question at the time. Am I going to make it? And what does making it actually mean? For me, it was, and the broadest sense, I realized it wasn't about becoming famous. Very few people actually become famous opera singers, but it was about doing things that you found fulfilling artistically, and can you support yourself doing them, and for how long? And so I was looking at this and thinking, well, it's kind of a gamble. I might not be able to do this at the level that I might not get the breaks that I need. And so I thought, if I have these other interests, I have these other skills. I had an economics degree, and thought, if I start now in my early mid 30s, I can take an entry-level job in arts admin, like a full-time arts admin job, and see if I like it. If I don't, I can go back
right.
and keep performing. But if I do it now, I can really see where it goes, and I might not want to do this transition in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I started to apply to some jobs. And one of the big catalysts actually at this point was the Great Recession.
Okay.
In 2008 through 2011, everything turned upside down, and a lot of opera companies started closing and cutting things back. And I was watching this as a performer, thinking the industry really needs people leading these organizations who are determined to find a way to keep them alive, because it is extremely difficult. And when they close, it's very hard to restart them in that community. And so I remember thinking, I had at one point imagined maybe after a long singing career, I would want to, as a second chapter, kind of go into arts admin. And I thought maybe I should do that now. So this all came together, and I started applying for jobs, and got 0 interviews, and except that I had one great connection that stepped in at a perfect point in my life. The general director here in Palm Beach at the time was Daniel Biaggi, mm-hmm. and he had also been a singer before he went to arts admin. And one of the ways that he supported himself while singing was being a language coach, because he was Swiss. He is Swiss, and spoke everything fluently. So I worked with him as a language coach when I was a singer at Chautauqua Voice School about 15 years prior. Wow. And so when a job here in Palm Beach opened up, it was a seasonal artistic assistant.
Okay.
And I wrote to him, and he gave me an interview, and the company gave me the job. And I came down here 10 years ago, and thinking this is going to be a couple months. We'll see how it goes.
Right.
And I was doing all of the logistics of travel and housing for the artists, payroll, all the welcome bags and visa applications, and everything to kind of get the artists here and comfortable.
Well, logistically, it sounds like you really had the ideal background to step into this position, and I think it sounds like we're lucky that Palm Beach County got you, really, you. There's so many ways that it's interesting to watch people's, and you don't know when you're in it, of course, but watch how the path has unfolded, right? And the timing of you being a performer and thinking about, is this sustainable for me long-term? And then a recession coming along, and you kind of having this realization of, you want to see a successful, thriving opera in all of its various ways, and realizing that you could do something to be a part of that, and leading you right here. I think that's marvelous. I did want to ask about your first opera exposure. How did you get into it? Where did that start?
Yeah. So my first actual opera was at the Met, and I was a senior in high school. It was Il Trovatore, and a great soprano, Sonja Radvanovsky, was singing in it. So I had a wonderful first experience there in the theater. But I got exposed to I'd really say the art of singing from a young age, because my mom had a beautiful voice and would sing around the house in a very operatic kind of manner, even though she was not trained in that. And she encouraged me to really get involved in music. So I took piano lessons and was one summer in this musical Oliver at a professional company in town, and spent the whole summer just having an absolute blast on stage, and really living that life of creativity. And so I really cultivated my voice. When my voice changed through puberty, then I completely stopped. I didn't know how to use it. And it was just kind of luck that the high school choir director had been involved in that production of Oliver when I was a kid. And he had been a former opera singer. And I thought I was going to play piano somewhat seriously. And so there was a music theory course at the high school. And I thought, I want to take this course. And the choir director taught it. And knowing my background and wanting to see me get back into singing, he said, in order to take this course, you have to be in an ensemble. Okay. And there's no ensemble for piano, so you have to join the choir. And
sneaky. Yes.
Okay. And I'm very grateful to him because it made me kind of rediscover my adult voice then. And I became just obsessed with practicing. And I would listen to the Met radio broadcasts every Saturday. And I started ordering CDs of different artists and really kind of immersing myself in singing. And
that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's how it started.
What a fantastic, spark, that theater. And then you had the right educators around you who were, able to see something and pull you back into it and nurture that spark more. That's wonderful. You mentioned it earlier, but certainly with your degrees in both music and economics, you just had this great alignment for this role, like we talked about. And I think you already answered the question, but it seems like it was sort of a gentle-ish transition, at least the way you make it sound, seems like a well-considered, thoughtful, as opposed to like, oh, suddenly I'm a broke artist and I need to like make a change, right? So it was something that life sort of pushed your way, but it wasn't anything really dramatic,
no. Looking back, it feels like a destiny. Yeah. That of course my interests all kind of converged after different arms of that path. But yeah, when I went to college, I was looking for a place that I could study. I thought science at first because I was really interested in biology, chemistry, and thought I might become a doctor or a researcher. But I also wanted to be serious about singing studies. I didn't know exactly where that would lead. And so I went to the University of Rochester and the Eastman School of Music. They're part of the same university. And so I could do two degrees at two campuses. And it was my elective in economics that made me realize, actually, this is what I'm really passionate about, not the lab work. Yeah. And so I dove into that. And I think there was a thought that, you looked at people like Plácido Domingo, who obviously one of the world's greatest tenors of all time. He was also the general director at Washington National Opera at the same time. And so there was a thought that like, oh, this is possible to do. You can be an artist and be an administrator. But yeah, it really just kind of unfolded naturally, I'd say.
Yeah. Wow. And I was wondering, and maybe this is a past, maybe it's a current, maybe there's a mix of both. Did you have any rituals when you were a performer? Any opening night, any pre-show rituals?
Yeah, I'd say that, my personality, I was very regimented and trying to control all the variables that go into this act of singing. And so it was always about, getting enough sleep, eating the same things. Singers are often very prone to and sensitive to acid reflux, heartburn. So you're always watching what you eat. Rarely alcohol, rarely spicy things. And so that was down to a science of what am I putting in my body? Sure. The warming up of the body, I would always do physical activity like swimming if I were in a place that could do that to get the breath going. But then there's a long warm up process of the voice.
I mean, it's such a huge physical feat.
Yeah.
to sing opera.
Yeah.
It is you're an athlete.
Absolutely.
When you're that kind of performer.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense that you have to, be very conscientious about how you're treating your tools, with the intake of what you're putting in your body and how you're exercising and how you're warming up. All of that is just, the same as being an athlete.
Yeah.
And, it makes sense. Are there any things that you do now as a director pre-opening night?
I'd say now I'm less stressed on opening night because I know that it's in good hands with the people on stage, and now it's very different. I'm there to support the performers. I always go to each dressing room and greet the principal singers and just give them encouragement and that we think they're great and the audience is going to love them. And I guess one of my rituals, I always like to be on stage after the show, usually right as the curtain's coming down to congratulate everybody afterwards.
Yeah.
And
nice. Is there a moment, in either preparations or maybe the moment comes post season that you're like, oh, this is my favorite part of this, or a part that you get really excited about, a phase of, like I said, maybe it's the preparation, maybe it's the what comes after and the preparing for the next, or is it opening night? Where's the spot where you're like, this adds a little extra excitement to your.
Great question, because it's creating an opera season. You're building it from scratch every year. You start over in every sense, from hiring the performers and choosing the repertoire to fundraising for it. Like every part of it is new to that season. And so there's always, when you're in that planning, there's an excitement to it as it's coming together, but it's never like, it's a slowly unfolding excitement.
Sure.
Like little piece by piece is coming into place, and there's all these frustrations. Oh, I can't believe that didn't work. Yeah. What's the solution now? How are we going to fix this? So I'd say that like the moment of excitement and satisfaction is at the performance when you see people enjoying what you put together. And to the kind of the first thing we were talking about, the first question, that is so much more fulfilling than being on stage for me. Yeah. Where you're just one part of a large operation and you're not on stage the whole time, your scenes that you're in. But to put the whole piece on and know that you contributed to this actually happening. And without you, it might not have happened like this. Yeah. And to see people enjoy it, and see them be moved by it, it's incredibly gratifying. And so I think that's the exciting part.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, to be able to step back and take a broader look at the whole ecosystem that is thriving together. Must be just, a beautiful moment to be able to appreciate it. It makes sense. I did want to ask, when it comes to the Palm Beach Opera, how do you think their identity has been carved out in, among national and international opera companies? What is different here?
Yeah. Well, this is a very unique place to produce opera, because we have people from all over the world who are used to seeing the greatest singers and the greatest productions wherever they are the rest of the year. Right. And I think that's an incredible part of Palm Beach Opera's story. And one of the things that really kind of hooked me when I was here was the history of this company. We're now 65 years old next year, and it grew out of exactly this idea of people here who wanted the same level of opera that they saw in New York when they're here in Palm Beach. And so from the very beginning, even when we were first performing in the Palm Beach High School auditorium, we had great singers, people like Beverly Sills and Robert Merrill, who are titans of opera history, were singing here, and it's a company that's always had a European connection, more so than other American houses, particularly of this size. And part of that is the two first music directors. Paul Chonka, the first of 20 years, was Austrian and very well connected to a lot of these European singers and stars. And then our second music director, Anton Guadagno, was one of the most famous Italian opera conductors of that era. He's on a lot of recordings with Domingo and Pavarotti. And so there's always been in Palm Beach more of I think a European feel to the company. And I'm told before I got here, they used to actually hold rehearsals in Italian rather than English, because it was more people understood it.
Wow.
And so it's an amazing legacy here. And what I'm really proud of is that we've been just, I think, building and building and building on that. And I look back at what we were able to do 10 years ago, and the great productions, and now how our reputation has just continued to increase, and what that means for the singers that we're attracting, and the productions that we're doing, and the choices that we're making. And I think when people come to the opera, I often hear from them, because they're seeing the singers that we bring in now. They are singing in this season at the Met. They're singing at La Scala. They're singing at Royal Opera House. They are true stars.
Yeah.
And we're really lucky that they want to come here in the winter to Palm Beach and enjoy a couple of weeks in the sunshine, and that they value the artistic reputation that we have, and they know that it's going to be good. And so when our audience comes and they see these singers, I often hear afterwards, oh, that was better than the Met. That was the best Marriage of Figaro I've ever seen, and I've seen it a dozen times. And I'm very, very proud of that. And of course, is it better than the Met? The Met has a lot of advantages in the scale of the production that they can do that we cannot accomplish with 1 week in the theater, in a theater that's not built at the scale of the Met. But what I think people are feeling is that the consistency and the quality of the singing that we're bringing, it's something that's so important to me. Like we only have 3 productions a year. They all have to be fantastic. And it just won't stop until we've got the exact right people in these positions.
Well, it sounds like, obviously this isn't a short-lived thing that has happened, right? It's been in process and in development for those 65 years. But it sounds like really there is wonderful, fertile ground that's been cultivated to be able to attract this level of artistic skill and this level of, excellence. And it's very exciting to hear about, and soon to see. I've got to attend, and it will be my first real opera performance experience. So it must be right here in Palm Beach County, of course. I've had snippets of performances where I literally stumbled upon an outdoor performance in Bryant Park in New York, which was wonderful. And other than that, I would say the really earliest and most opera that I ever experienced was from Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd.
Sure, of course.
I feel like there's probably others who can relate to that, but I'm excited to have this opportunity to really get the full experience and that I can do it right here where I grew up.
Yes.
And that was one of my questions also is for somebody who's a novice, a beginner, maybe there's an interest, maybe there's a spark of like, I should try that. I don't know if it's for me, or I don't know if I'm a part of that culture or that community. You know, what would you say to somebody who wants to come experience the opera? Is there maybe a show that you would recommend as somebody's first, you know, if you could handpick what their experience is going to be, what would you say? What would you suggest?
So there's probably about 10 operas that are like really good first operas because they have music that you'll recognize from commercials or pop culture references, and they're stories that are just classics. And there was an interesting study that Opera America did recently about first-time opera goers and what attracts them, what brings them into the theater. And there has been a recent kind of thought or hypothesis that it's new opera goers, first-time opera goers want to see new opera, contemporary opera, something that's written now about today.
Interesting.
And the study actually said the opposite. The study said that people are coming to the opera, they want to see something that they've heard of, and that's a classic that stood the test of time. And so out of this group of operas, what's exciting for me is that there's 2 of them this year in our season at Palm Beach Opera. We are starting the season in January with Puccini's La Bohème, which is probably...
I have heard of, yes.
It's probably the most performed opera of all time. And this is just a beautiful and heartbreaking story about love and loss, among a group of starving artists in living this bohemian lifestyle, La Bohème, in 1840s Paris. And it's 2 parallel love stories, and one is really heartbreaking with the sacrifice that comes out of it. There's the girl Mimi. These are all poor young people trying to make their way. And she is a seamstress, and she is sick with tuberculosis, and realizes that she's going to die. And she ends up leaving her boyfriend, a poet, Rodolfo, so that he doesn't have to watch her die. It's incredibly heartbreaking, and then at the end they reunite as she's on her last breath, basically, and it never fails to bring people to tears. And the music is just so beautiful. There's so many great arias and duets and ensembles that people will come out of the theater, certainly humming the tunes and really just feeling the beauty of what this art form is.
Wow. Yeah. I'm very excited. And, any opportunity to experience, obviously not just the performers themselves, but everything else that goes into these kind of the stage, the scenery, the costuming, all of these different creative efforts that are behind one production is always mind-blowing to me. So I'm sure I will just enjoy so many aspects of it. And I'm definitely going to encourage anybody else to be like, maybe we'll get some people together and we'll all go experience this together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I definitely want to talk about some of the programs and the education components of the Palm Beach Opera. I know it's a very important aspect of, the mission and what you do. Right. So first let's talk about emerging talent. And I know you have a resident artist program.
Yes.
That's, I think it was established 2004-ish.
That's right.
2004. So it's been, it's existed for a while. It's been supporting up and coming and emerging talents for a while now. But I wanted to ask, since your tenure here, what have you seen? What have been the impacts that you've been able to witness through that resident artist program?
Yeah, it's one of the most important things that we do, I think. And you're right. It started in 2004, the seedlings, I think, of what the program has now become. But we were really lucky then because there was a young soprano growing up in Palm Beach named Nadine Sierra, and she is now the top soprano in the world. And she got her start as a high school student in our resident artist program.
Wow.
Now since then, the program has kind of created different tiers where we have a high school division for local singers who want to go to conservatory. Then we have professional divisions for people who have already gone to have their bachelor's and usually master's degrees in voice. And this is an incredibly important program for both the industry and for the community. For the industry, because it's taking emerging talent and giving them the opportunities they need to grow and build their careers so that we have great star singers in the future. And for the community, because these singers are the core of our education and engagement activities. So they're the ones going into our schools and really bringing opera for free to people all around Palm Beach County, Martin County, Broward County, Hendry County. So what's been exciting here, just in terms of what we can do with the career development of these singers, that's really in the last 10 years, I'm so just fortunate that when I came, there was a building interest in expanding this program. And it really aligned with my experience, having gone through several of these programs of similar types, and knowing what I thought singers needed, and what would be really useful. And so when I started, we had one professional division, and it was 6 or 8 singers, and there was basically no visiting faculty. We had our resident music staff. And by the second year, there was some donor interest in building this up. And so we started to build a curriculum and bring in really the most in-demand voice teachers, language coaches in every language from the Met, acting coaches, and even more musical coaching. And so we went from receiving about 80 applications for these positions when I started to now we receive over 1,000 applications a year for a dozen spots. And even, the dozen spots, it can be a 2-year residency. So we don't always have 12 to fill.
Right.
And we also don't always, we're always recruiting people because we're looking for the true singers who we feel have the best shot at having a major career. And so sometimes we're recruiting people who don't apply. So even out of that 1,000, we're not always finding, the people who are going to bring.
Right. Well, like you said, you're working on something that is going to, hopefully, and it sounds like it is successful at that, being able to sustain this art form, right? It's not just about the performance and talent ability. It's also who can make this a career that works for them, that sustains them long-term and carries this forward to the next generation and beyond. Yeah. So it's amazing that you, again, have this, you've garnered, like you said, the donor interest and the support for this kind of programming that can keep just bringing incredible talent and growing them and fostering that even more. And I love that is also how, the where the branch of community engagement comes in, that these resident artists are the ones who are going out into schools and being those first, maybe moments of sparks for the next generation of performers to come in. I'm sure that's an incredibly rewarding aspect of this work.
Absolutely. And what I think is so special too about that is exactly the quality that is of performance that is part of these education programs. You can get a sense of how talented these singers must be by the fact that it's out of over 1,000 people applying. But what I think is really, it's a unique story here. The success that this program has been having. We've had in just the last 5 or 6 years now, several winners of Placido Domingo's Operalia competition. In fact, I think it's 5 winners now. So more winners than any other company in the world over that time. Wow. And several winners of the Metropolitan Opera National Competition. And these singers are now singing at major houses all over. I mean, we when I look at alumni news, from our program, it's like, okay, they're singing at Vienna, they're singing at Berlin, they're singing at La Scala, they're singing at the Met, Chicago, San Francisco, Houston, and so on and so on. And it's something that I think will be a legacy for Palm Beach Opera to the industry, is the talent that we identified and cultivated. And what's just so amazing is that oftentimes these singers that we're bringing in, there's several stories where they weren't getting opportunities. They were in fact on the verge of saying, I'm going to give this up and do something else. And because of the opportunity that we gave them, they're now living their dream. And it's something that is, I always say, it's one of the most fulfilling things that you can do, is to help someone else achieve their dream and know that their career is because of what we invested here.
Absolutely. And the ripple effects of that, right? How much more the art form is, again, sustained and or spread to other, audiences or other future performers because they got to see this performance from this person. So it's, again, it's that whole ecosystem that you get to witness. That's amazing. Yeah. I did want to ask, and I think this program kind of touches on that a little bit, but if people know the Palm Beach Opera from the main stage performances from Kravis, is there any other programming that you would want people to recognize that is a part of the company as well?
Yeah. So the education initiatives that we have been a part of our identity for decades, and it's a part of our mission. Our mission is threefold. It's the main stage, it's the resident artist training, and it's education. And we want to bring this art form to everyone in this community. And it's so important, as arts education seems to always be one of the first things to go. Yeah. And that we're bringing our opera into schools. And when I came here, it was something that really moved me, because where I grew up in central Pennsylvania, we didn't have an opera company. I heard it on the radio, and only because I had this great voice teacher, choir director who opened my eyes to it. But here, we're able to reach thousands and thousands of students with a program we call Concerts in the Classroom. So these are our resident artists who go into classrooms. They sing arias and duets. They talk about the curriculum connections to opera, whether at various grade levels, that's different connections. It can be literature and theater, and they talk about what the careers are like in opera, which are not just being a singer. You can be a orchestra musician. You can be a costume designer. You can be a set designer, a hair and makeup. You can be in marketing. You can be in fundraising. Right. You can be. It's a whole huge operation of opportunity if you love this art form. And what's so important is that people are hearing it live, because opera is something that it's an acoustic art form. It gives you goosebumps if you hear it live in a way that it doesn't over recording. You can appreciate the beauty of the tone over recording, but this is a primal cry that just really, it pierces your soul, and it can move you to tears. And so to hear it done in person is an incredible opportunity for all the children in this county and South Florida. And that's just one of the programs that we do. We have storytime series for younger children, where we have a library of books that we've created that are the stories of the operas, a couple of popular operas with some musical excerpts, and there's a sing-along component and a read-along component. We have, of course, the OR 101. So that's when we bring schools into our dress rehearsal so they can see the full production. And for many of them, it's their first time in the theater. And then one of our more recent, and I think really incredible programs that we've established is one with the Boys and Girls Club. And this came out of a really happenstance connection that one of our chorus members was a executive at the Boys and Girls Club, and thought it would be great for their club to have the opera come there. And that grew now into a whole immersive experience where we're now at multiple clubs, and we work with these clubs for the full year, and they create and perform their own opera.
Oh my gosh.
So first they learn about opera by having our singers come visit them, and they come to our facility, and they see rehearsal, and they see the behind the scenes. But they have a theme. This year it's adventure stories from around the world. But a couple of years ago it was anti-bullying was the theme. So across all these clubs, they came up with stories of experiences being bullied and how they wish it would have turned out. And they worked with a writing coach to create a libretto of the opera, and then with our staff to set it to kind of popular tunes from opera. They learned those, they staged it, they built cardboard sets.
This is so cool.
And when they perform it at the end of the year for their friends and family, now we do it at Person Hall at the Kravis Center. So they're having a Kravis Center experience, and they just get up there and sing their hearts out. And to hear people who probably had no exposure to opera before sing these opera tunes with such gusto and enthusiasm, and really take to stage, and you see them build confidence and their expressiveness. It's amazing.
And the creative agency that supports, right? The fact that you have unleashed this, thing in these young minds of, I can create a whole thing, and obviously it's in collaboration with people and resources, but unlocking that is such a major thing to do, and not just to have made it, but to be able to see it then come to fruition in performance and what that feels like, what that aspect of it feels like beyond just the making of it. How cool is that program? I love that. That must be so exciting to see that really come together. And that's happens every year. It's a yearly program. Wow. Wow. So fun. All right. Well, gosh, I have more questions still. I I did want to ask before we have a brief break here, can you tell me a moment, a memory where, it could be with the students, it could be with the resident artists, the main performers, the primaries. Is there a moment when you're like, this is why live performance is so key?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's every performance, there's that moment, right? But is there one memory that stands out to you where you're like, this is it. This is why this is so valuable?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's seeing, it is so many moments. It's hard to encapsulate, but it's seeing, these students at the dress rehearsal for the first time, and they're cheering louder than maybe our, opening night audiences. You can tell they're so engaged in the story, that when the villain dies, they are letting loose an uproar of applause.
I love that. Yeah, really active members of the audience, right?
And really laughing at the jokes. It's that for me is one thing. It's seeing the students at the Boys and Girls Club just really grow into these performers on stage, but it's just seeing our audience reaction. And just a couple weeks ago, we had a scenes program with our resident artists. So every year we do an acting residency that then we do some excerpts from operas rather than a complete opera, kind of the most dramatic parts. And, this is great training for the artist, but also really wonderful for the audience to get a variety of different things. And we just did a scene from Dead Man Walking, which is a true story. It was made into a movie that many people know, of a Catholic nun and a death row inmate, and their kind of the spiritual journey that he went on with her in the moments leading up to his execution. And we did the confession scene, which is the 15 minutes before he's to be executed, and he finally confesses his crime for the first time to anyone, and it's to this nun, and it's just incredibly moving because she tells him that he is still a son of God and has God's love, and it's the first time he's ever felt love. And the performer in this scene was so completely invested and scary in retelling this story, and our audience was just, in a way, I'd say, shaken by it, and as they should be. And I had one of our board members tell me that he couldn't speak for several minutes after seeing this scene.
Yeah. And
that's the power of live art. You know what's going to happen. You've seen the movie probably,
right.
But to feel it in person, there's just nothing like
the
it.
Intensity is just irreplaceable. Of that. Yeah, that's a great answer for sure. So, all right, we're going to talk some about more community and culture that the opera is involved in. We're going to take a brief break. We're going to hear a word from our wonderful sponsor, the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County. And after you hear their message, we're also going to talk a little art beat, a little moment, a little extra inspiration for our working artists and or future artists of Palm Beach County. So stay tuned.
Those dinner reservations and tea times will have to wait, because there's an art-filled paradise beyond these beaches. A mecca of masterpieces, spectacular sights by day and night. A cultural capital that's calling your name. See so much more than you came for in the Palm Beaches.
Okay, so we're going to dive right into a little extra segment called Art Beat. And all that is a sort of an offering, something that we can mention to, again, the artists or future artists listening to this that want to get more involved in the arts community, specifically in Palm Beach County, but really this would apply to anywhere. So my suggestion of the day, and you can jump into this, is going to be attend the events that you want to be a part of or that you dream of being a part of. So if you find yourself thinking, if you're leaning towards music, performing arts, being an exhibiting artist with galleries or museums, you need to go to those local things that are happening here in our community and, involve yourself in that system, whether that is just being an audience member and seeing what it's like to be supportive from that aspect of it, or potentially, meeting people and getting more involved in those arenas. But, wherever it is, if it's in performance or exhibitions or, even if it's in the admin side of things, still attending those things that you want to be a part of, I think is really key. And there's so many accessible opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
Free things, events, moments around that. There's just ways to jump in. But I think people are always kind of have the question of like, well, how do you find your people? How do you get in your community? How do you, where do you start? And my suggestion is just go to the things you can, whether, that might take a little bit of ticket money, or like I said, it might be a free event, but start by just attending the things that you hope to be a part of and see what it's like.
Yeah.
So I think that's a place to start. Other than the ones we've talked about, the artists in residence and how they're involved in the community, I wanted to ask, how do you balance honoring the history of the Palm Beach Opera and, opera companies and what this art form means, while providing, let's say, more accessibility or, broadening audiences, drawing in new appreciators?
Yeah.
How do you balance those things, honoring the history and making maybe, new accessibilities?
Yeah. So this is an interesting time because there's so much digital content out there, and people, I find, especially since the pandemic, are spending more and more time at home watching things rather than out in live performance. And what is really beautiful about opera, and why I think that it will always exist and have this market in the arts, is that it has to be live. And when you experience this sound and this whole spectacle of what this art form is, the grand scale of it with the sets and the costumes and the orchestra and the chorus, it's something that it's irreplaceable. You can't get it in any other form, and it's not mic'd. That's the beauty of the tone. When you hear this unfiltered sound, it actually resonates with the audience member's body. It's not, it will touch you in a visceral way. And so, honoring the legacy, I think it's, the core of what makes this art form special and unique will always have a place in our world. I think it's actually, I consider it one of society's greatest accomplishments, that we created this convergence of all the arts, and that, because it really is everything. It's music, it's instrumental and vocal music, it's theater, it's poetry, it's visual art on sets, it's fashion, it's it's dance. It's everything altogether. And so I think that it's something that that people, when they experience it, they've never really seen anything else like it. And what our I think our challenge is to figure out how to get this message across and get people to experience it for the first time. And that's part of what our education programs are about. There's a lot of people that I meet here in this area who don't know we have an opera company, or they think that they won't understand opera because it's in a foreign language. Often it's in a foreign language, but we do have super titles that people don't often realize that the translation is projected above the stage. So you always know exactly what's going on. Or they think that maybe it's too fancy for them, that it's something that you have to be in a tux and in a certain society to appreciate, and that's not at all true. You can be in a tux. I'll be in a tux for opening night, but you can come however you're comfortable, just like going to a movie theater essentially, and everybody can understand and connect with opera. You're going to see the emotions on stage that you feel. You're going to see stories that, even if they're 200 years old, have resonance with things going on today. And so I think that, in certainly in this country, there's I can see a decline in opera in popular culture. If you look back 75 years, opera stars were on the talk shows. And Mario Lanza was one of the most famous kind of matinee idols and doing movies. And he was an opera singer. And people, I think, knew these names, and you had that all the way through the three tenors. That was a unique phenomenon. But now I see less and less of opera in that popular culture sphere. And when it's in movies, it's often maybe it's the villain's passion, the eccentric, and I think that we have this is much bigger than Palm Beach Opera. This is an industry-wide question of how do we ensure that opera, through lobbying really and advertising, is seen as positive, persistent and pervasive messaging, because people don't know what they're missing. It's when I heard it for the first time, I didn't understand what I was listening to, but I was moved by it. And this is the classics of the repertoire will endure forever because they're some of the most beautiful things ever created. So
like you said, the value that people don't know that they're missing, and how to continue getting that message out. And in a digital age, there's a benefit and a challenge at the same time that, you have to, it's hard to get people out of their comfort zones and certainly away from a screen long enough to say, like, trust me, this is worth it. You're not going to regret it. Right.
Yes. And to the point of the question of accessibility, one of the the things that's so important to us and many companies is that we have a price point that people can enjoy. We always have tickets for $25 to any opera. And we have also an initiative for our young friends. So anybody up to age 49 is considered a young friend. And we have a subscription available with great seats and other perks for $150 for the year for all three operas.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And we do a ton of free programming in the community as well, not just our education, but other concerts and activities where we're out and about, and we're always trying to do national anthems at baseball or polo, and show people this style of singing, which is just so thrilling to hear. And then there's all these great collaborations. What I love about being in this community is the artistic ecosystem that we have. And there are so many wonderful artistic things happening and organizations here that we partner with. And this year it's we have our children's chorus in La Boheme is the Young Singers of the Palm Beaches. And then in our Pearl Fishers, we have a huge dance component, and we're partnering with Ballet Palm Beach for the fifth time, and bringing in a choreographer who has been on The Lion King on Broadway for 20 years. Wow. We always do collaborations with the art museums here. So the Norton and the Boca Raton Museum. For many years now, we've been on either Art After Dark and the Music in the Museum series. And what I love about this is they are opportunities to have this cross-disciplinary look at the arts, because we tie in our program musically to what is on exhibit at that time. So a few years ago, there was the Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit, and I was part of my background is that I worked several summers at Santa Fe Opera in the admin. While I was here, I would go here in the winter, there in the summer. Okay, I was working remotely for Palm Beach for a few years there, and so Georgia O'Keeffe had, of course, a big base in Santa Fe and a museum there, and so. I worked with her museum because she loved music, listened to music all the time while she was painting. And so I got access to what was in her record collection to see what she was listening to when she was painting. And then there was a lot of opera and art song in there. And so we programmed a recital around what she was listening to while she was painting.
How cool. I love to see those details come together and be a part of a performance and an exhibit at the same time. That's fascinating. That's a great collaboration. And you're so right. We do have so many really excellent institutions and organizations here that these kind of collaborations can come to life. So I love to hear about them. That's a great one. We talked about, first time experience for the opera. I did want to talk more about the sort of, the patronage and sustainability aspects of what it takes to be a not just surviving, but thriving opera company. And, is there anything that maybe you wish people were more aware of, or that doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to funding and supporting and patronage and those aspects of a functional opera company? Yes.
I'd say that, we do talk about it sometimes in our letters and stage speeches, but people who don't know opera very well may not know that. So opera is a nonprofit organization, and what part of what that means is that the ticket sales do not cover the costs of not only just producing opera, but everything else that we do as part of our mission to the community. And the figure now here in Palm Beach, it's about 20 to 25% of our revenue is from ticket sales. And that's fairly standard now. It's an interesting kind of economic question and trend because this is a percentage that over time has been shifting. I think it's ripe for a study because San Francisco Opera recently said that in the 60s, their percentage of revenue from ticket sales was 60%, and now it's 16%.
Wow.
And that's not necessarily because the audience size has changed or because they're not selling out. It's because the expenses of opera have increased faster than ticket prices. Part of that is because you want to keep the prices reasonable, so that there is the accessibility question. But part of it is actually just an economic phenomenon that this is an extremely labor intensive art form. You can't create new productivity over time by playing the opera faster or reducing the number of people on stage that it takes to do it or in the pit. So as in a lot of industries, there are productivity efficiencies that happen over time. The way we produce opera today is the same way it was produced. Will look exactly the same as it did 200 years ago or 100 years ago. And so there's a term for that. Baumol's cost disease is kind of the phenomenon of in these labor intensive industries, and the costs of everything else in life are going up. So the labor costs have to keep increasing to match that. But the revenues are not increasing. So we are, as an industry, reliant on the generosity of donors. And it's a really beautiful thing that people feel inspired to give to support this art form. And opera has a different model in Europe. It is very much government supported. They have transitioned to have to start fundraising more from individuals because the government's funding is uncertain at times. But that comes with a whole host of other challenges as well. Then you have these leadership positions or political appointments, and there's a question of producing what the government wants you to produce. Here we're lucky to have some government funding, and really lucky for the Cultural Council and the support that they give in grants, and especially through the TDC grant that they administer for the Tourist Development Council, which is so important to our organizations here. It's funded by the bed tax money, and really acknowledges the contributions that the arts have to tourism
economically
in this community. So donations are really the lifeblood of what we're able to put on stage and what we're able to do in education. I feel very fortunate in this community that we have some very generous people who see the value in what we do and want to support it.
Yeah. It is incredible. And it's wonderful to know, already for not just the life of the Palm Beach Opera, but for opera as an art form, how long it has been sustained through community of people who recognize its value and its importance, and that it needs to continue to be a part of how we experience art. Looking ahead, 5 years, 10 years, is there anything that you're, that you could share that you're particularly excited about or looking forward to for the Palm Beach Opera?
Yeah. So in 10 years, it'll be our 75th anniversary. And that's a great milestone I'm looking ahead to, with an eye towards exactly this concept of tourism and community growth. I think that this is a place that is primed to really become a tourist destination for opera, more so than we are now. Right now, we put on a quality that would attract people to come see from anywhere, but we only do one show at a time. We do a production in January, we close that one, we start the next one February, then the next one in March. So there's not a festival element where people will travel in to see a different show every night for a period of nights. This is the model of Santa Fe Opera. They do 5 operas. You can go at a certain point in the summer and see 5 shows on 5 different nights. This is Salzburg. This is Aix-en-Provence. This is Verona. These types of places. And I think that Palm Beach is really uniquely positioned because of the international name recognition of this community, because of the amenities that this community has, that you can come for an artistic experience here if you're an opera lover, and you can also see all of these great sites, great museums, great dining, go to the beach, golf. There's so much that would attract people to come here, and so I really think this is our destiny as a company, is to find a way to capitalize on this idea. And it will require venue flexibility, that we would have enough time in a venue, and the scale and capacity backstage of that venue to really bring this to life. But it's something that is my goal. I'd like to see it happen in 10 years. I want to open our 75th anniversary season in this model.
I think that sounds incredible. Yeah. And I agree. What a wonderful area this would be to host an event like that. And obviously there's other wonderful, successful models that you can say this works. And it's a part of a vibrant tourism industry,
right.
That you have all those pieces and all those elements here in place. It's just a matter of them, coming together, venues and all the rest that goes into that much in, a condensed period of time.
Right.
But that's a beautiful.
And it'll mean more for the local community too, because right now when we're performing on one weekend of shows, if you're out of town that weekend, or if you have other commitments that weekend, you might miss it.
Absolutely.
And in a festival model, you're performing the same operas successively for a few weeks. And then also you can build more word of mouth. Right now, we have a great show that opens on Friday night. The review comes out Saturday afternoon. People see it in the paper on Sunday. And then the show's closed. And you can't necessarily tell all your friends, oh, you should go see that next weekend.
Right. The window of opportunity is so short that, I can imagine, that's hard to build on. Yeah. But a model that does a condensed level of showings in, a few weeks' time. Yeah. That could spread like wildfire, hopefully, right? Absolutely. So that's great. I love that 10-year plan. Last 3 questions, are pretty easy ones. One, I ask this of all the guests who come on, and that is, if you had to name a place, an event, a public piece of art, any arts related thing that you think anybody living or visiting Palm Beach County should experience. And obviously we know the opera is one of them. So we're going to set that one off to the side because we've highlighted that all episode. Are there any others that you think, oh, this is one that I have to tell people that they need to experience while they're here?
Yeah, I'd say the first that comes to mind is, well, all of our other performing arts organizations, they're incredible. I mean, really, what comes through the Kravis Center, what the Palm Beach Symphony does, what the Chamber Music Society does, what the Ballet Palm Beach, what Miami City Ballet, they're all doing incredible work, and we should all see all of it. But also, I think the thing that's always there as a building and institution, every day of the week is the Norton Museum, and it's I think people visiting don't always realize, there's going to be exceptional art in this museum.
Yeah, world-class exhibitions that we are so lucky to have here, and a multitude of ways to experience it. Like you mentioned their Art After Dark program, which I love. It's just a different tone. It's a different vibe for, a museum setting, such a great way to experience it with, maybe more community interactivity, there's music involved, there's some sort of activation. Typically they have a local artist or a local, person involved in, we're going to do screen printing because they have a screen printing exhibition, or they're going to, have somebody making some fabric sunflowers based on Van Gogh, or, something that's an element of their, exhibit that is just always an enriching experience there. So I do think that's a great answer for sure. The Norton is excellent. My other question is, again, kind of looking into the future more, do you have any advice that you would like to share with maybe other arts leaders or people who are interested in being in those kind of roles for institutions, and those that want to see both, longevity and the heart and passion thrive?
Yeah. So I think that, I feel like I'm a lifelong learner.
Love that. It's a great perspective to be in.
And so I never think about giving advice. I'm always looking for advice. And I always think of myself as young and feel like, I don't yet have it all figured out. So advice is an interesting question to give, but I will say, and also because when you talk about from two other arts leaders in this community, well, I get advice from other arts leaders, and we have a great group of arts leaders in this community that we talk and we share ideas, and we talk about challenges and how we get through them. So it's another one of the great parts of being in the arts in Palm Beach County. But if I had to give advice, I would just say, the kind of things that I focus on in our organization is, I think it's so important, especially in producing opera, the live arts, in this nonprofit model, which always, it seems impossible to do. It's almost irrational to do. And you never quite know how you're going to get there. There are all these hurdles that get put up that you have to solve. And the only way that you solve them is through positivity. You have to stay positive and optimistic, and always look for the opportunity in the challenge. And, even as just an example, in 2021, everything was closing. Live performance seemed like an impossibility.
Right.
And I looked at that and thought, there's a big opportunity here, because seeing what was happening at the European festivals at that time, where they were performing outdoors with certain safety protocols, and really working with a doctor on our board of what would be safe to do, researching all of the articles that were coming out, and coming up with this plan that, okay, I think we could do something outdoors. We have the weather to do it. at a time when no one else does, when probably everything else is going to cancel. And so we created an outdoor festival of opera in February of 2021. No other opera companies were performing in the United States, certainly not on the scale of what we were doing, with full orchestra, full chorus. And so I saw that the opportunity and the challenge, and the opportunity was we can hire every great singer, American singer, who is now out of work, who is already booked at the Met, at Chicago, at San Francisco. Well, now they're all going to come here at the same time. And so keeping positivity, keeping optimism, and looking for the opportunity and challenges is how I operate. And, I think it's important. This is a position of public trust. The public, the board, trusts you as the custodian of this art form for this period in this community, and to never take that for granted, and to work with integrity toward that.
Well, those are excellent words of advice and wisdom. And I think so is the first thing you said, which is just to be a perpetual learner.
Yeah.
That's its own piece of advice, to stay open to that. It is a perspective that can take you further always. So thank you for sharing that. Last question, I promise. It's an easy one, is that where can people get more connected? If they, where can they get their tickets? Where can they see what's coming up and find out how to share in these live experiences?
Absolutely. Our website is pbopera.org. You can call our box office. Our number is there on the website if you want to talk to somebody directly. And we're on all the social media too. So there's lots of ways to find us.
Excellent. Well, I am again so grateful for you taking the time to sit with me today, share your story, share about the opera and its wonderful histories and, future, that there's so much to look forward to. And I can't wait to see a performance. I'm very excited for January now. We're getting close. So remind me, performance starts.
Yes. Opening night is January 23rd for La Boheme, 23rd, 24th, 25th. We start rehearsals in just a couple of days.
Wow. Amazing. Well, I wish everybody, I don't know if you're supposed to wish good luck or if you're supposed to wish break a leg or which version of it, but all of those good things. I will be there to see the performance. So I'm excited. Great. Thank you again. And as always, thank you to our wonderful sponsor, the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County. We have so much gratitude for you and for all the viewers who are listening and tuning in. And we appreciate your time and that you support this creative culture here in Palm Beach County that we love and hold so dearly and want to share with everybody. I will see you next time on the ArtiGras Podcast.